Solving quadratic equations by completing the square. So far, we've learned to solve quadratic equations by graphing and factoring. However, it's not always practical to graph each equation, and some quadratic equations are not factorable. So that means we can solve for quadratic equations using two other methods. We've got the completing the square method and something called the quadratic formula. Today, we're going to learn just completing the square method. We already know how to complete the square. What we're going to do is complete the square in each equation, and then we're going to isolate x after, meaning get x by itself. So solve each of the following completing the square. Make sure when you're reading your questions that you're solving. Sometimes I've seen people just complete the square and then they move on to the next question, but you need to make sure you solve for this. So you'll notice the questions will be set equal to 0, or you will set them equal to 0, but there's only one variable x in there. It's not going to be equal to y. All right, so to solve by completing the square, you're going to group those two terms. Open up your brackets, put that space in there to put in a new c value, and we'll leave minus 48 out there. Remember that goes in the brackets is that formula b over 2 squared. So that would be the b value right here. So negative 2 over negative 2 is negative 1. Negative 1 squared is 1. So we add 1 here, which means we have to minus 1 here to balance that out. So then we have 0 equals, you're going to write this as the square of the binomial. So x minus 1 squared, you just have to square root that number. The sign will always be the 1 right here. Minus 48 minus 1 is minus 49. All right, so completing the square, that's nothing we haven't done several times before. Now what we're going to do is get x by itself when we're in this equation. So you're going to move 49 to the other side. And now you want to square root to get rid of the square. So I'm going to square root this side, which means, of course, I have to square root this side. So the square root of 49 is plus or minus 7. You have to remember it's plus or minus, because negative 7 times negative 7 could also equal 49. And then x minus 1 just clears off. There's not a plus or minus here. You're just clearing off the squared side. Now you're going to move 1 to the other side. Now there's two answers here, really. You have plus or minus 7 plus 1. So I'm going to just sort of separate this. So we're going to have positive 7 equals x minus 1, and you have negative 7 equals x minus 1. So I'm separating this out now. Now to solve for each, moving this 1 over, I would have 8 equals x. And moving the 1 over here, I'd have negative 6 equals x. So my two answers are negative 6 and 8. So you still have two answers there.